Since we've been in Paraguay, things have changed in regards to the process of applying for your residency and cedula. There's been some changes in the degree to which the applicant has to get things right. Things that were easily sorted, issues that might have been minor when we applied, aren't so much so now. It's not a big deal. You just need to make sure that now more than ever before, everything is done correctly before you arrive. Documentation needs to be in complete order, and there's a lot of little things that need to be verified and checked, because sometimes easy to overlook what seems to be just minor things. The first thing you obviously need to decide is whether you're going to use an agent or apply yourself. There's pros and cons with both. We used an agent. We know a lot of people that did. We also know some people that applied for it themselves. It really is up to you about which way you go. But the purpose of this video is to talk specifically about engaging an agent. Since we applied for our residence and watched many others do likewise, we have noticed that there's certain red flags that you should be on the lookout for when looking at any prospective agent, because over the time that we've been in Paraguay, unfortunately, we have seen different things occur that have made us realise that if we were applying for our residency again, they're things that we'd be looking out for. They're things that we wouldn't have been mindful of. And it was a different time then. Things were relatively simpler. So now more than ever before, these red flags are things that you should have in mind when you're looking to engage a prospective agent. If when you're in the process of considering an agent to do your residency application, you're given advice, anything along the lines of, well, any problems that you have with your documentation, just come to Paraguay and we'll sort them out when you arrive. If you get that advice, then I would highly recommend that you turn on your heels quickly and look for another agent. I can think of nothing that you would want to do or sort out that would be better done here than what it would be in the place where you are. You don't want to be sorting issues out, particularly regards to discrepancies with documentation or anything like that when you're here, if possible. It's not the time to do it. And what it can lead to is you can arrive in Paraguay only to be faced with all sorts of issues, sometimes increased costs, and it's something that you truly do not need. You want to hop on the plane to be on your way to Paraguay to make your application with full confidence that your documentation's in order and there's not something hanging over your head that you need to sort out at this end. And to be quite frank, I think it could potentially be the sort of tactic that could be used by an unscrupulous person who wants to get someone here, because when you're in a position like that, you are prone and vulnerable to being exploited. So you never want to be in a situation where you're coming to Paraguay with a question mark over your head in regards to any part of your application. When talking about transparency, and this should all be clarified by your agent before you get here, you should have an online meeting with your agent. You should be told very clearly what documentation you require, any issues with any of the documentation you may have. During that meeting, you should be told about other things like, how's the process actually going to go down when you arrive? What are the transport arrangements? Are you going to be collected from the airport? Are you going to be taken around to all the offices? How many other people are applying with that agent on that particular day? Because it's not uncommon that an agent will be lodging your application, but also other clients. That in itself is not a big deal, but it can be if that agent's got too many on that day. So it's a fair question to ask, well, how many people will be applying on the day that I'm applying, particularly if you've got children or you're elderly or have a health issue. You don't want to be dragged around with a bus full of other people, because that will just drag out your potential application process on those days that you're having to go around. So all of those things need to be fleshed out and clarified. Before you hop on that plane, you should feel really confident. If you don't, then you need to get onto your agent and ask the questions that you want to ask in order to get to that point. The second red flag that I'll be looking out for is if anyone tells you that you need to use a licensed agent or a specialist immigration lawyer. To start with, there is no such thing as a licensed agent. There's no accreditation in this area of business. Furthermore, when it comes to the claim that you should always use a lawyer, that too is a false claim. There's no justification to say that a lawyer has any more success in the process than an agent. It's really up to you. And there is something riding on this because it does cost significantly more generally to hire a lawyer than what it does for a immigration agent. So you really do need to think carefully about this and not be cajoled into using a lawyer just because someone tells you that, oh, if you don't use a lawyer, you're going to have issues. Just when you're considering whether you're going to use a lawyer or an agent, I would say this, that the busy agents are doing it every day and that's all they're doing. The good ones are flawless. But there's also a chance that the lawyer's doing your immigration application this day and then they've got 100 other different things on following days. The point I make is that you need to ensure that whoever you're using is an expert in that area. They really know what they're doing, because I'd rather have a good agent than a bad lawyer. It's up to you, but there really is no need to use a lawyer over an agent in any sort of expectation that one is going to perform better than the other. When engaging an agent, be careful not to engage a drama farmer, someone that feeds into your possible insecurities or fears about the process. People here know why there's so many people coming to places like Paraguay. It's no secret. What it creates is a situation where if there are people here who are wanting your business and wanting to get you in a situation where you're stressed and insecure, they'll fan on those insecurities. They'll say things like, oh, you better apply right away because I've heard the doors are going to shut any time. I have an insider that told me that you've only got 3 weeks to apply, or you better do it only through me because all the other agents aren't doing a good job. Anything like this, any of these sort of dramas, they're usually tactics to get you into a position of hyperventilation and insecurity, and it's the best place to get people in order to exploit them. A good agent will allay your fears, make you feel secure about the process, whilst giving you the good information and making sure that you are aware of all of the issues that you need to be aware of. You really don't want to be coming and marinating in an environment of drama, fear and uncertainty. And any agent that whips those sort of things up are probably doing it for a reason, and they're obviously not professional, because they should be laser focused on what they're doing. It's not their job to make you feel maybe even worse than what you may be feeling when you're coming, depending on how you feel. And then there's the issue of money. There's always a danger in paying too cheap or too expensive. But as of the time of making this video, an approximate ballpark that you should be expecting is if you're going to engage an agent, you'd be paying around $1,600 US. If you're going to engage a lawyer, it'd be around about $2,300 US. Anything significantly below or above that should be massive red flags. Additionally, if you are coming with children under 13, there should be a price advantage with those children. It should be around about the $850 mark US per child under 13. They are the benchmarks, I can assure you. I've verified it. So anyone that tells you that you've got to pay significantly more, otherwise you're going to be getting a substandard service because of that price, well, there's a red flag right there. And just one thing in regards to money, don't overlook the discussion about how and when you're going to pay the amount. The last thing you want is a rush around in regards to having to make the payment. Some agents will insist on a particular currency or to be paid in a particular way. Make sure that that's all nailed down before you hop on the plane and you understand how you're to pay and the process of payment. It's an administrative thing, but it can cause you headaches if you don't get that nailed down, because I have seen that become a real hassle for people. Newbies, people who have been only doing it for a few months, and this includes people who have come from a different country and successfully applied for their residence themselves. It's not unusual that you'll see someone who's arrived here and after a few months they become experts in residence application. Sometimes their credentials are that they applied successfully themselves, so that is a demonstration in itself as to their ability to get the job done. And to an extent it is, but they came from possibly a different country, definitely with different circumstances, and their situation is not your situation. And the one thing about applying for residency, it's the devil is in the detail. And although many applications go through without a problem, there are a percentage that have issues. And it's those times where you really want someone over the ball that's seen all the different variants of what can happen and knows how to navigate the situation. So regardless of how capable someone's feeling about the fact that they made application themselves, and so that demonstrates that they'll be able to do it for you, I would regard that to be a red flag, because if anything untoward happens, they're not the people that you want in your corner. You have to pay $5,000 into a bank account. You have to have a sponsor. You have to buy a property. All of these things are being peddled, and I have heard that of recent times there are some people out there that are peddling this harder than ever. They're all nonsense, big red flags. You don't have to do that. Some of these things were requirements once upon a time that they no longer are, but there are charlatans out there that are making all sorts of claims about what you have to do before you arrive, and make upfront payments and all this sort of carry on. Massive red flag, obviously, but easily fallen into, because particularly with things like putting $5K into an account, my understanding that was a requirement at some stage. So it wouldn't be too difficult for some charlatan to concoct a case to put in front of you that would perhaps convince you that that's still in place. So just don't fall for any of those things. Whenever you arrive in a new country, invariably there's people there who have come from the country that you've previously been living in, or perhaps the region of the world, or who speak your particular language. And these people are often set up and ready to greet you and to hopefully do business with you. And in a lot of cases, they're brilliant and very useful, and they're a real resource. But there's also a percentage of these people who are basically honeypots and set up to look for people who speak a particular language, or who identify with a particular ethnic or cultural perspective. And they use that as a fulcrum to get under your guard and to compel you to use them. There's particular people here that speak certain languages that aren't so common here. And because they're here and they're front and centre, they're really attracting a lot of traffic from people who are looking for someone that speaks that language, and rightly so. But I also know that some of these people are just complete shysters. So your vulnerability of only speaking that language or wanting to speak that language really puts you in a situation where you're really being funneled. We have that sense of normalcy bias. If we see someone that speaks our language, perhaps comes from the place we came from, it disarms us, we put a lot of trust into them, and it can be to our detriment. I would caution people to be very careful about hopping off the plane, seeing a friendly face who can speak my language, and then just investing in everything that they tell me. Oh, that's how much it costs to do that. Okay. Oh, that's how I do that. Oh, yeah, right. Trust but verify. Just because they seem like they're really trustworthy and they speak your language, don't discount the possibility that that might be a funnel that you are walking into, and that it's going to cost you a lot of money, because it definitely is the case. We have seen that, and we do see that here. Be sure that your agent or lawyer backs themselves. And what I mean by that is that they don't just say that they're really good and they've got a really great reputation, they promise not to let you down, but guarantee in writing that what you pay is what you pay, no more to pay. We have seen the odd instance where people have come, they've had an issue with their documentation. That's because there wasn't sufficient transparency. Maybe an agent said, "Oh, just come and we'll sort it out when you get here." And then they're hit with unexpected issues, in some cases unexpected costs. And what we've seen is that people are being expected to pay that themselves. A decent agent will give you a price, and that's the price. If there's extra to pay for any reason that was not expected, that's on the agent, not on you. You need to get that in writing, because you don't want to be in a situation where you thought that you had to pay X amount, but now it's an open checkbook. You don't want to arrive, put your application in, only to find that there's unexpected extra costs. And it's something that, if it does happen, there's been a breakdown somewhere in the process. And if you've engaged an expert in the form of an agent or a lawyer to do your application, well, that's on them. That's what you have engaged them for. And any decent agent will wear that cost, because you shouldn't be in that situation in the first place. If you find yourself being stalked by someone on Facebook who has the best agent or lawyer in the world, and you shouldn't use anyone else, regard it as a big red flag. It's one thing to ask for a recommendation and someone mentions a name of an agent or a lawyer. And social media can be a great tool to form your list, and then you can go from there. But on social media, there are a fair share of Venus flytraps, people just waiting in the wings to make some business for someone that they know. Quite often they're an agent or they're working in with them. That in itself, there's no problem with. If someone's touting for business for someone, good on them. But when they're stalking people online and private messaging them and then trying to cajole them and pressure them into using a particular person, it really goes beyond the pale, because it's not only the fact that it's not a very pleasant thing to do, but it's also a red flag, because any agent that's doing a fair job don't need people to be doing that for them. All of the decent agents are doing good business at present, so they don't need to be sitting online waiting for people to come on and ask about prospective agents to use. And certainly if they have the time to follow you up and then follow you up and follow you up again, well, they're probably not the agents that you need, because the agents that you need are busy doing their job. Be careful of those that trade on past glories. It's great that people have got clients that will speak well of them and who will give them testimonials, and it's totally understandable that you will view those testimonials, and that can be an indicator as to how that agent's going to perform. But it's certainly no guarantee, and I think particularly in reference to references, particularly when they're video based, they can have a tendency to make you just think that this person is 100% and that you don't need to make any more inquiries or to be cautious about what you're doing. Even bad agents can find people to speak well of them. Also, there are agents that once upon a time were doing a cracking job but have since gone off the boil. Things have got a lot busier, things have become more complex. Some agents don't cut it anymore, but nonetheless, they'll be able to find people who they've helped in the past who will speak really well of them. Just be aware, it's nice that they've got people that will speak well of them, but it's not a guarantee. It's not something that you should just stop at and go, well, someone spoke well of them, they're my guy. It's not that simple. You need to look at it a bit more thoroughly and deeply than that. In respect to Paraguay, the only thing that is certain is that nothing is certain. Someone can give you the best recommendation based on the best advice with the best intentions, but things can go askew. It's just life. But in Paraguay, it seems to be a case that things perhaps have a little bit more of a tendency to do that in some other places. It's a place where the standards vary and things can change quite quickly. So the important thing to do is, rather than fighting against that, because it's not going to change for you or I, is just to accept that reality, do everything that we have to do, but also be confident in knowing that it's also a place that a lot of things can get done. You can get things achieved here, sometimes in a way that you might not in the place that you once called home, but the most important thing is that you are able to just rest easy knowing that you've done everything that you needed to do to give yourself the best chance. But don't expect perfection. The second thing that I'd recommend is just have fun with the process, because it's going to happen anyway, whether you have fun or not. But the other important reason why you should try and approach it with a positive, happy, adventurous attitude is because it's the best headspace to be in a situation where there's so many uncertainties. I do see people that come to Paraguay who are really stressed out, really highly keyed, and when something goes wrong, it can really blow up. up, and we've all got a tendency to be like this, and we really have to train ourselves to just limit that, because it's no good. It doesn't work, because apart from it being no good for our health, it's not really a good mental state to be in. Paraguay is the sort of place that if you just keep it tranquil and on the lowdown, things will work out. Paraguayan people are very sensitive to people who are highly strung, maybe pushy or difficult, and all that's going to do is absolutely frustrate the process. Anyone that thinks that they can railroad or bulldoze their way through and get stuff done, more often than not will frustrate the process. So there's no point getting stressed. You're better off to have fun with it and just have a blind expectation that it's going to work out, because one way or another it will. So being stressed doesn't help. Be nice to your agent. If you engage an agent, put them through the ropes, put them through the ringer, make sure that they're 100%, ask them every question you need to ask them. Do whatever you have to do, but really try and be nice, because your agent is your first and most important contact that you make in this country. If they're a good agent, then they're someone that you really will value when you get here, not only for what they're doing for you with your application, but an agent can also help you with other things. They're really switched on people. It's a really technical job, and to do it well, you're dealing with a real professional. So I would urge anyone that's dealing with an agent to be really respectful and to just assume that if you've engaged them and you've put them through your due diligence, that they know what they're doing. We have seen on occasions people come and then cross-examine and doubt their agents to the point where it creates a really difficult relationship. That's not the headspace that you want to be in, and you don't want that relationship with your agent. It really is an important relationship, and you need to really value it and nurture it. Sometimes people engage an agent and they'll go online and start asking for information and then come back to the agent and start cross-examining them or doubting them. It's really not necessary. Yes, sure, read up what's going on online, but be very careful about what you believe and what you take on from people who are telling you online as opposed to your agent, because things move quickly, and almost on a daily basis we see information given online that is kind of partly true and partly out of date or never was true. Be very careful about that, because you don't want to be that person. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a tendency among some groups of people to come here and be difficult with their agents, and it doesn't end well. It's not a headspace that you want to be in. I haven't spoken about specifics in terms of processes or changes to the residency process for a few reasons. One is I want this video to be up for more than a week, and unfortunately that might be all the time that it might be up for if I go into specifics, because I want any video that I put out to be accurate, current information, and things change. So it would be pointless for me to make a video telling you what I've heard about the situation as it stands as of the time I'm making this video, because things are in a constant state of change. I want this video to be evergreen. I know what's going on with a lot of the different things, but it's not my place to be ranting on a video and giving you the absolute good oil. That's the job of the experts. Get an agent or a lawyer, whoever you're going to engage, and get the first-hand information as it stands on the day you're asking it, and based on all of the information as it relates to you. There's no point someone going on the information that nobody's made on a video and then running off with it and thinking they know everything. That's the worst thing you can do. For that reason, that sort of information really needs to be obtained by an expert, or if not an expert, firsthand from the official websites that you'll need to access and understand and work with, that give you advice from the government agencies of the country. But there it is, my 10 cents about what to look out for with agents. It's still open for business. You can still come here and get your residency, no problem. It's still one of the best countries in the world to do that in terms of the ease of doing it. The government's still very open. Things are still working. It's just that things have changed as the world has changed. And as long as we keep on top of our game and keep moving with the play and don't take things for granted. Things are going to be fine. So I hope that's useful, and until next time, take care. Ciao.